Mosse, I was out in Philadelphia, and as I mentioned, with a lot of soccer people, and obviously the big story and the talking point and what everybody wanted to talk about was, the continued saga and soap opera that is, the Reynas and the Berhalters and everything that's going on. By the way, nothing has changed since we last spoke. If and when it does, we will certainly bring it up. But it has spurred another discussion and a deeper discussion and an ongoing discussion in the soccer world, and I guess in the greater sports world out there, about the situation and the climate that exists out there when it comes to moms and dads. And this is nothing new. I mean, you can go back to Todd Marinovich and stuff like that, but how they interact and act as parents of athletes, and in some cases, elite athletes. And look, there are now stories coming out. I guess you'd call them horror stories, but it's in an effort to show that while this is an extreme situation when it comes to the Reynas and the Berhalters, it's not necessarily new in terms of moms and dads poking their nose into places where you feel they shouldn't be, and overstepping and overreaching when it comes to the influence and the impact that they have with their player and their player's situation in teams and with coaches. For example, John Hackworth, former U.S. under-17 coach, on his experience coaching his son's youth team. And this is a guy who's been in it all. I mean, I'm going to quote him. He says, "In between games, I had a mom go ballistic on me because her son didn't start in a game. I do think that and he's talking about this phenomenon of helicopter parents and moms and dads injecting themselves into the sports landscape that their kids inhabit, that it is more commonplace in this country. And the reality is that it is problematic." Okay, I get that. I don't think that this is necessarily something new. I think that anybody that has ever coached at any level at some point has had a parent come and, again, overstep the bounds there. And sometimes it's a civil and respectful type of disagreement, and sometimes it's probably some shouting. We have created a situation where the stakes are either high or the perception is they are incredibly high, and from a very, very young age. And that probably is where it has changed the most, in that the vision and the belief, and at times the hope and the dream from a very, very young age has come into play that little John or little Julie are going to be, the next Christian Pulisic or the next Alex Morgan, or, insert your player there. And that game and that moment is going to define them and is going to steer them in one direction or the other. And the course is going to ultimately dictate whether they do become these incredible stars. We talk about specialization, and we talk about, from a very young age, players playing at quote-unquote an elite level and being talked about and groomed, if you will, to be elite athletes so that then they can, have a better chance at going to college and getting a better scholarship. That in and of itself is not necessarily anything new. But it's easy to say it's problematic and we should change. But I don't know what the answer is, other than having parents that have perspective and that understand that while we all want to protect our children and we all want to support our children, injecting yourself into a situation like that actually hurts them. It hurts them in the eyes of their peers. It hurts them in the eyes of their coaches. But it doesn't help them not to fail. It doesn't help them not to at times be in difficult and uncomfortable situations, even at a young age. And again, I'm all for supporting, and I want my kids to know that I support them. But in no way, shape, or form would I ever think it is my place to go up and scream and yell at a coach or disagree with the coach. You have put them in positions of leadership and power and authority to make those decisions. And if you want to coach, go ahead, you coach. But if you don't want to, let the coaches do what they want to do. And look, I know it's easier said than done, and emotions get involved, and you go forward. But it was interesting to be around so many coaches this weekend in Philadelphia at the coaches convention, and I know that was on their minds, and I think they used it as a jumping off point to talk more about ultimately what a coach's role is. And time again, and this actually, I was heartened coming out of Philadelphia, because time and time again there was the echoing and the affirmation that as a coach, as a soccer coach, even as an elite soccer coach of elite players, your responsibility goes well beyond making them better soccer players. And I think that they take that to heart. And in an already difficult type of situation, when parents make it even more difficult by injecting themselves into the situation, it's a recipe for disaster. And so the training is needed, the understanding is needed, the perspective is needed from a coaching perspective to be able to deal with that. And the best coaches make it very, very clear before their season or their time with these players start as to what is expected out of the parents, and what is tolerated and what is not tolerated going forward. And if you don't like the way somebody is coaching, if you don't like the situation that you have put your child in, and in many cases they are children, then take them out and go someplace else. Anyway, Mosse, anything to say before we go?
Now let's get out of here.
Oh, one more thing before we go.
Oh, boy.
In thinking, and this applies to the thing that we just talked about. Again, we still don't have any clarification or understanding or further understanding about what the coaching search is when it comes to the U.S. men's national team, where Gregg Berhalter stands. But I was talking to someone in Philadelphia about this. There's a part of me now that has gone the way of thinking that I actually want Gregg Berhalter named as the head coach. Not because, and as you know, this goes against everything I believe in terms of multiple cycles. But this is where my sadness that I talked about last week has turned into anger. I am angry that Gregg Berhalter is going to be denied the opportunity, even though I don't think that you should continue for multiple cycles, that is ultimately going to be denied this opportunity for what has ultimately happened to him. I think it is BS, and I think it is unfair. And I have come to the point where I am actually advocating for not letting that win, not letting that happen is the best course. And saying, no, we are not going to let something like that take down a good man and deny him an opportunity. If he was in consideration for the U.S. men's national team coaching job, and by all accounts he was, whatever that percentage was, I hope to God that it hasn't changed. I think it probably has. And that not only saddens me, as I said before, but that angers me. But I don't want that to win. And in order for it not to win, there has to be a stand taken. And that stand, as crazy as it sounds to me, is naming Gregg Berhalter as the head coach. And so I don't think that anybody's going to listen to me. I don't think that is ultimately going to happen. But that's where I find myself here on this Monday, January 16th.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.